Thousands of people were watching him that night. He was wearing a Santa hat, laughing, drinking, gaming. He told his audience he was home for the evening and not going anywhere. 17 miles away, his pregnant girlfriend was being murdered in her own home. She was 32 years old. She was expecting a baby, 15 weeks pregnant, and 27 minutes before her killer walked through her front door. She opened YouTube. She watched his stream. She saw him at home, laughing, safe. She had no reason in the world to be afraid. She closed the app and went about her evening. That stream was not live. It had been recorded 4 days earlier, saved as a file, and set to play on a timer, while Natalie McNally was fighting for her life. A digital copy of the man who killed her was sitting safely on thousands of screens. This is the case of Natalie McNally, the woman who trusted a man who had already planned her death, and the YouTube live stream that nearly became the perfect alibi. Natalie McNally grew up in Lurgan, County Armagh, Northern Ireland, the only girl among 4 siblings, 3 brothers who called her Nats. From the age of 3, she lived with type 1 diabetes, managed it every single day without complaint, without drama, without letting it define what she could become. She studied law at Queen's University, Belfast, then moved into communications and marketing at TransLink, Northern Ireland's major public transport authority. She campaigned for better diabetes services. She showed up at Belfast Pride. She did things for others without keeping score. Her brother Niall said she would do anything for anyone. The life and soul of the family. A heart of gold. She had her own home on Silverwood Green in Lurgan. Her dog, River. Her 2 cats. A career she was proud of. A family who adored her. She was, by every account, someone you would genuinely want in your life. In August 2022, she opened Bumble and matched with a man named Stephen McCullagh. McCullagh was 36 years old. He lived in Lisburn, 17 miles from Lurgan. Online, he went by VoteSaxon07. He ran a YouTube channel covering video games, Doctor Who collectibles, and pop culture merchandise. Around 37,000 subscribers. Over 15 million views. He also worked part-time as an audience editor at the Belfast Telegraph. He understood how digital audiences behaved. He knew how trust was built online. He knew what made people believe what they saw on a screen. To the world, he was enthusiastic, quirky, harmless. His first message to Natalie introduced himself as that robot weirdo from Bumble. She matched with him anyway. 133 days, hundreds of messages, dates, evenings at each other's homes. By November 2022, Natalie was 15 weeks pregnant. She had already chosen names. Dean if it was a boy, Zara if it was a girl. McCullagh called the baby Little Squish. He talked about moving in together. Natalie was 3 days from the scan that would have confirmed she was carrying a boy. A scan she and her mother Bernadette had planned to attend. Together, December 2022 was supposed to be the beginning of everything. What Natalie did not know was that McCullagh had accessed her phone. He knew her passcode. He had read her messages with a former partner. And by the 2nd week of December, he had already begun to plan. Most men, when they feel jealous, send a message. Some start an argument. Stephen McCullagh put on a Santa hat, sat in front of a camera, and recorded 6 hours of footage he would never actually broadcast live. Stay with me, because what he did next is one of the most calculated things anyone can easily think of. On the 14th or 15th of December, 4 days before the murder, McCullagh recorded what he called the Violent Night Christmas Live gaming stream. 6 hours and 4 minutes of himself playing video games, drinking, talking to a camera as if he had a live audience. During the recording, he mentioned twice, casually, that he would not be responding to the live chat due to technical issues, and that he would not be using his phone that evening. Think about that. The 2 details that would most obviously expose a pre-recorded video as fake, he addressed them both, in advance, on camera, He had thought this through. Sunday, December 18th. World Cup final day. Argentina versus France. Natalie spent the afternoon at McCullagh's home in Lisburn. Investigators later found he had searched bus routes between Dunmurry and Lurgan while she was there. She left, drove to her parents' house in Craigavon to watch the match with her family. Her mother Bernadette later described her as very content that day. A baby on the way, Christmas around the corner, time off coming. When the match ended, Natalie packed up River, a pile of Christmas wrapping paper, and headed home. She turned to her mother at the door and said, "Mummy, I will see you Monday or Tuesday. Come on, River, let us go and see the cats." They waved her off. At 6 in the evening, the pre-recorded stream began to play on his channel. His phone went dark. At 6:36, CTV near his home captured a figure leaving with a bag. Buscrete TV recorded a man travelling from Dunmurry toward Lurgan, face covered, hood pulled low, a mask, black gloves with yellow marigold gloves underneath, completely still for the entire journey, only moving once to lift his mask and take a sip from a can. At 8:24 that evening, Natalie opened YouTube. She watched her boyfriend's live stream. She saw him at home, laughing, gaming, at ease. She had no reason to feel afraid. She closed the app. At 8:51, the figure entered Natalie's home. No forced entry, no broken lock. She had let him in. What happened inside that house over the next 40 minutes? A state pathologist later spent days documenting. He used a knife from Natalie's own kitchen. The report catalogued 48 separate points of injury. Stab wounds, fractures, strangulation, defensive wounds on her hands and arms. She fought back. She tried. The pathologist told the court that either the stab wounds or the strangulation alone would have been enough to kill her. He used both. She was 32 years old. She was 15 weeks pregnant. Her baby's name was going to be Dean. Two neighbors later told police they had heard what they now realized was a scream at around 9 that evening. They assumed it was nothing. At 9:31, the figure left Natalie's home, walked calmly to a taxi, changed the destination mid-journey, said his mother was unwell. At 11:16 that night, McCullagh's phone came back to life. The pre-recorded stream was still playing on his channel. It continued until 12:05 in the morning, when it was manually stopped. Minutes later, he sent Natalie a message. "If you are still with me, you already know this case is unlike anything else. A murder planned to the minute, an alibi built for thousands of witnesses, a woman who had no idea. Subscribe to True Crime Britain if this is the channel you want to come back to, and let us keep going." The following evening, McCullagh drove to Natalie's house and called 999. He presented himself as the devastated boyfriend who had just discovered something unthinkable. He told officers he had been home all evening. The live stream would prove it, and he offered a name: Natalie's former boyfriend. Someone, he suggested, worth looking at. Police looked at the stream. 6 hours, thousands of viewers, a public timestamp. On December 20th, McCullagh was released. On Christmas Eve, Natalie's family were told he was no longer a suspect. On Christmas Day, Stephen McCullagh attended Natalie's wake. He was welcomed as a grieving loved one. He asked for 20 minutes alone with her coffin, and they gave it to him. What McCullagh had dangerously underestimated was the police service of Northern Ireland's cybercrime unit. Investigators examined his devices, and what they found dismantled everything. The 6-hour video had not been broadcast live on December 18th. It had been recorded on approximately December 14th, saved as a file, and in the early hours of December 19th, after Natalie was already dead, it had been deleted, then deleted from the recycle bin. A digital forensic analyst testified that the video file retained its original creation date. The deletion timestamps were recoverable. The broadcast had been streamed from a saved file rather than captured live. This was not a theory. It was forensic fact. On February 1st, 2023, police confronted McCullagh with the evidence. His first reaction was disbelief. Then he changed his story. He admitted the session was pre-recorded. He claimed he had simply been home that evening. And the real killer, he said, had deliberately planted evidence to frame him. Someone had set him up. On February 2nd, 2023, Stephen McCullagh was charged with the murder of Natalie McNally. He pleaded not guilty, and then he waited. His defense was simple. No fingerprints at the scene, no eyewitness, no confession, and they had one more card to play. The name of another man who had been arrested during the investigation. A man McCullagh himself had pointed police toward from the beginning. The question the jury had to answer was the evidence strong enough to convict a man who had been careful enough to leave almost nothing behind. Stay with me. The trial opened at Belfast Crown Court on February 16th, 2026. 5 weeks of evidence, a jury of 6 men and 6 women. The prosecution built their case in layers. CCTV tracking a figure consistent with McCullagh across dozens of cameras. Phone data showing his device went silent at 6 in the evening and did not come back to life until 11:16, matching precisely the window of the attack. The fake live stream, the shifting explanations, the sustained effort to redirect suspicion. The defense said everything was circumstantial. Then Natalie's former boyfriend took the stand. He looked directly at McCullagh and said, "Natalie really was my best friend, and you killed her." He had to be warned by the judge to remain calm. McCullagh did not take the stand. He did not give evidence. He did not look at Natalie's family in the public gallery. On March 23rd, 2026, the jury retired to consider their verdict. 2 hours later, they returned, unanimous, guilty of murder. In the public gallery, Natalie's family erupted. Cheers, tears, people holding each other. McCullagh stood without expression in the dock. He did not look at them. He never looked at them. On June 3rd, 2026, the judge, Justice Kinney, delivered the sentencing tariff at Belfast Crown Court. He said it was difficult to find words to describe the abhorrence of what McCullagh had done. He said McCullagh planned the murder in remorseless detail, that the killing was cold-blooded and calculated, evidenced by the extensive planning leading up to the murder and his actions afterwards. He described the murder as a brutal and frenzied attack. He noted that McCullagh killed Natalie in a place of sanctuary by someone she trusted while she was pregnant with his son. Significant weight, the judge said, was attached to the death of baby Dean as an aggravating factor. Stephen McCullagh was sentenced to life imprisonment, minimum tariff 31 years. He will be 67 years old before he can even be considered for release. Outside the court, Natalie's father Noel spoke. Her brother Declan said his sister was an inspirational person, that having her in their lives had been the greatest joy they would ever know, that she would have been an amazing mother to baby Dean. Natalie McNally managed a chronic illness from the age of 3 without fuss. She built a career, a community, and a life that people were better for being part of. She was 3 days from finding out her son's name. She had Christmas presents under the tree that her family could not bring themselves to move. She deserved every moment of the life she had built. She deserved to hold Dean. Stephen McCullagh had 37,000 subscribers and 15 million views. Some of those people were watching the pre-recorded stream on the night of December 18th, while Natalie was being killed, not knowing that the entire performance had been built for one purpose, one audience of one. This case changed things. Because of what happened to Natalie McNally, the assumption that a public broadcast proves presence has been permanently challenged. A YouTube video is now a crime scene. And in a world where deepfakes and artificial intelligence-generated video are expanding every single day, question of what counts as proof of presence is one that courts and platforms have not yet fully answered. Natalie McNally's name is part of that conversation now. It should never have had to be. If this story stayed with you, share it. Every share keeps Natalie's name alive, and it keeps pressure on to take violence against women seriously. Subscribe to True Crime Britain. Turn on notifications, new cases every week, and leave a comment below with one word, the one word that describes how this case made you feel. I will see you in the next one.